What happens when a secret buried for decades comes to light after the death of an elderly woman? For lawyer Mark Johnson, this question becomes a torment when he discovers that the deceased, his former client, held revelations capable of changing not only his life but also the lives of many around him. Mark had always been a respected professional, dedicated to his work and committed to justice. However, behind his facade of confidence, he carried a deep vulnerability, fueled by traumas from a past that still haunted him. Since his mother's death when he was just a teenager, Mark had struggled with insecurity and doubts about his own abilities. His dream of making a difference in people's lives seemed distant, especially in a legal environment that often felt hostile and indifferent. The situation became more complicated when Mrs. Mary, a lonely elderly woman who always seemed to have an aura of mystery, passed away. She had been a client of Mark in a complicated will case, and even after the process was concluded, he felt there was something more behind her enigmatic words. During the mourning period, Mark was called to resolve inheritance issues and, while investigating the documents, found a hidden diary revealing impactful truths about Mary's life and the secrets she had kept. These discoveries would not only shake the foundation of Mary's family, but also force Mark to confront his own fears and insecurities. Amid the emotional chaos that followed, he realized that the pursuit of justice was not just about resolving cases, but about understanding the human stories behind them. This revelation made him question how far he would go to protect the truth, even knowing it could hurt those he loved. As Mark delved deeper into Mary's life, he faced moral dilemmas that forced him to reflect on his own choices and what it truly meant to be a lawyer. He found himself on a journey of personal growth, seeking not only to redeem his career but also to find a greater purpose in his life. As the truth unfolded, Mark had to decide if he was willing to risk everything to expose secrets that would change the course of several lives, including his own. Mark Johnson found himself at an emotional crossroads, engulfed in a whirlwind of feelings upon discovering Mary's diary. The handwritten words of that woman, who seemed so fragile and isolated, now revealed to him an unexpected strength. With each page he turned, he realized that the secret she had kept for so long was not merely a matter of property or inheritance. It was an intricate web of love, betrayal, and regret that connected multiple lives, including his own. The first major revelation from the diary was the identification of an illegitimate son that Mary had in her youth. His name was Daniel, a name Mark did not recognize. The following pages spoke about how Mary and Daniel's father faced a moral dilemma that led them to separate, but the love for that son never faded. From that moment, the lawyer knew he needed to find Daniel, but this would not be an easy path. The search for answers would lead him into a world of complicated feelings and a network of relationships he could never have predicted. As Mark immersed himself in the investigation, he encountered the first barrier: the silence of Mary's family. Her daughters, Sarah and Emma, were a mix of anger and distrust. They had grown up believing their mother was a woman of solid principles, and now found themselves confronted with a new reality that challenged everything they knew. Mark tried to be honest, explaining the importance of uncovering the truth, but was met with hostility. Sarah, the eldest, was particularly skeptical. She believed Mark was merely after their mother's money and possessions, ignoring the pain that his revelations could cause. But Mark was not only battling the resistance from Mary's daughters. He was also facing a deep internal conflict. The memory of his own mother, who had always encouraged him to be honest and fight for the truth, weighed heavily on his shoulders. At the same time, he questioned how ethical it would be to expose secrets that might hurt people. The fear of repeating past mistakes consumed him. He didn't want to be the cause of family disunity, but he also couldn't ignore the story he was about to uncover. In this moment of uncertainty, an unexpected friendship began to form. Mark met Laura, the social worker who had assisted Mary in the last years of her life. Laura was a strong woman with a clear vision of the importance of truth. She did not hesitate to support Mark in his quest, even when he had doubts. Laura had her own scars. She had lost a brother under tragic circumstances, and understood how silence and secrets could corrode a family. Together, they formed an unlikely but powerful team. Laura challenged Mark to confront his insecurities and to stay true to his mission. However, tensions escalated when Mark began receiving anonymous threats. He knew there were people who did not want the truth to come out. These threats became a constant reminder that what was at stake was much greater than he had imagined. With each step he took toward the truth, he felt he was not only putting himself at risk, but also his new friendship with Laura. This led him to question how far he was willing to go. Over time, Mary's daughters began to notice Mark's determination and his connection with Laura. There were moments when tensions became unbearable, and arguments among them were heated and emotional. Sarah, in particular, lashed out at Mark with sharp words, accusing him of being an intruder in their family life. But Laura's words echoed in Mark's mind, reminding him that the truth, no matter how painful, needed to be revealed. As the pressure mounted, Mark realized he had to confront not only external challenges, but also his own internal demons. He began attending therapy sessions, something he had never considered before. It was an important step in his journey of self-discovery, and he found himself re-evaluating his beliefs about himself and his abilities. What did it mean to be a lawyer? Was it just about winning cases, or was it about touching lives and making a difference? As the conflict intensified, Mark was about to discover that the truth was not just a matter of facts and documents. It was an emotional journey that would require courage, vulnerability, and, above all, the willingness to face pain. He was determined not to let fear paralyze him. Instead, he would use Mary's revelations as an opportunity for growth, not just for himself, but for everyone around him. The search for truth was just beginning, and the lessons he would learn along the way would shape not only his future but also that of everyone who crossed his path. Mark was deeply immersed in his investigations when, on a rainy afternoon, he received a phone call that would change everything. It was Laura, her voice trembling and hurried. "Mark, you need to come to the hospital." "It's about Mary," she said, her concern evident. Mark's heart raced. He had become so close to Laura and Mary's story that, in an instant, the possibility of losing everything he had started to build shook him. Arriving at the hospital, Mark found Laura in the waiting room, her face pale and eyes watery. The news was devastating. Mary had suffered a stroke. Although she was alive, the doctors reported significant damage to her brain. The chances of her fully recovering were uncertain. The weight of the situation hit Mark like a wave, and he felt paralyzed. What would happen now to the truth he was trying to uncover? And, more importantly, what would happen to Daniel, the son he had yet to find? As Mark tried to process the situation, Mary's daughters arrived, visibly shaken. Sarah, the eldest, sought comfort in Emma while looking at Mark with suspicion. The tension between them escalated, and Mark realized that at that moment, the search for truth had become irrelevant. What mattered now was Mary's health and the impact this would have on the family. In the following days, Mark found himself in a dilemma. He had promised himself he would uncover the truth, but now, with Mary's health at stake, he wondered if he should continue his search. The idea of revealing Mary's past felt cruel and selfish. The weight of responsibility consumed him. He felt torn between the desire to honor Mary's memory and the need to protect her daughters from further pain. Laura noticed Mark's anguish and encouraged him to reflect. "Mark, the truth is important, but we cannot forget that life is more than that." Sometimes, we need to know when to leave things in the past, she said with a serious look. This idea haunted him. It was true that the quest for truth had led him down a path of self-discovery, but it had also placed him in a complicated emotional position. He didn't want to be the one responsible for more pain. In this moment of vulnerability, Mark remembered his therapy sessions. The therapist's words echoed in his mind: "You cannot control others' reactions, but you can choose how to act." He realized that his search for truth was not only about Mary's secrets, but also about his own journey of overcoming. However, the fear of hurting Mary's daughters left him conflicted. After days of uncertainty, a new revelation occurred. Laura, while speaking with the doctors, discovered that Mary had left a letter, a final wish, that could clarify her intentions. According to the doctors, the letter could be read at any time, but it might take a few weeks for Mary to recover enough to understand. This possibility reignited hope in Mark. If Mary could express her feelings and intentions, perhaps he could find a way to unite everyone instead of dividing them. When the letter was finally read, Mark remembered his own role. What he was seeking was not only the truth about Daniel, but also the reconciliation and love that Mary had always wished for her family. Mary's message in her written words was clear: she wanted her daughters to know that, regardless of her mistakes, the love she had for them and for Daniel never diminished. That letter not only illuminated Mark's path, but also brought a new understanding to Mary's daughters. The emotional impact was profound. Mark understood that truth was not a burden but an opportunity for healing and reconciliation. He realized that there was something more valuable than merely uncovering secrets. It was the chance to unite a family and offer hope to everyone involved. With this new perspective, Mark decided that his mission was not just about revealing Mary's story, but about building bridges. He committed himself to help Sarah and Emma navigate their pain and confusion while attempting to find Daniel. The journey would not be easy, but he was determined to face any challenge that arose, not only for Mary but for all those who loved and sought to understand the complexity of love and truth. And so, the quest for truth transformed into a quest for love and understanding, a journey that could change not only Mark's life but also that of Mary's entire family. Mark found himself in an emotional whirlwind after reading Mary's letter. The weight he carried felt a little lighter, but the challenges still lay ahead of him. He realized that his search for Daniel was not just about solving a mystery, it was a journey of self-discovery that would lead him to confront his own insecurities. The pain of loss and the uncertainty about the future left him restless, but he knew he needed to move forward. With Laura's support, Mark began to explore his limitations. He had always struggled to open up to others, fearing what they might think of him. However, seeing the vulnerability of Mary's daughters made him realize that everyone faces their own battles. This new perspective encouraged him to accept Laura's help and open up more, sharing his own insecurities. This exchange had a transformative effect, creating a stronger bond between them. The path was not easy. Mark faced moments of doubt when the clues about Daniel seemed scarce. He remembered his previous failures, the times he hesitated to move on. But instead of letting himself be defeated, he decided to start over. Each obstacle became an opportunity for learning. He learned to look within himself and not let his mistakes define him. This resilience helped him rebuild his life in ways he had never imagined. Over time, Mark began to realize that true success did not lie in finding Daniel, but in strengthening the bonds with Mary's family. He started to appreciate the small victories: a smile from Sarah, a heartfelt conversation with Emma. The fulfillment he had once sought in external achievements now manifested in moments of connection and love. The lessons Mark learned were profound. He understood that life is made up of ups and downs, and that every experience brings with it an opportunity for reflection. This wisdom helped him manage his emotions in a healthier way. He not only faced his fears, but also learned to celebrate his personal achievements, no matter how small. The friendships he formed along the way, especially with Laura and Mary's daughters, became fundamental to his growth. These relationships helped him see the world in a new light, filled with compassion and empathy. Together, they faced the unknown and built a space of mutual support, where pain and hope coexisted. Mark realized that true transformation lay in his capacity to love and allow himself to be loved. He was ready to confront whatever lay ahead, not just as an investigator seeking answers, but as a man who had found his place in a new world. The journey of overcoming and growing had made him stronger, wiser, and more connected with those who truly mattered. Mark was at a turning point. After weeks of searching for Daniel, he finally received a lead that could bring him answers. However, this revelation came with an unexpected weight. Daniel was in a neighboring city, struggling with his own demons. What should have been a moment of joy quickly turned into an agonizing dilemma. Mark realized that by finding him, he might not only relive the pain of loss, but also risk reopening old wounds for Mary's daughters. That night, as he looked at the stars, he felt an avalanche of emotions. The fear of failure, the guilt of not having been there before, and the hope for a reunion flooded his mind. He remembered the deep conversations he had with Laura, the laughter with Sarah, the affection Emma had shown him. Those moments meant more than any answer about Daniel. It was the connection he had built, the love that now sustained him. Determined not to let fear take control, Mark took a courageous step. He called Laura and shared his hesitations. She listened attentively, and her words were like a balm. "You are not alone, Mark. You have faced so much and risen again. What matters is that you are there, whatever the outcome." With his heart racing, he decided to go. Upon arrival, the scene before him was desolate. Daniel was there, lost and vulnerable, and Mark felt a deep pain in his chest. But instead of stepping back, he moved forward. He was not just there to confront Daniel, he was there to offer understanding and support. The journey of overcoming was not only about finding answers, but about allowing himself to be a beacon in the life of someone who also needed help. In that moment, Mark not only faced his greatest challenge, he discovered his true inner strength. The transformation was complete. He was no longer just a man searching for a lost past, but someone who had found his purpose in connecting and healing. Mark felt that his journey was not just about Daniel, but also about himself. In facing his brother, he realized that his own wounds were healing. The support he offered to Daniel not only helped his brother, but also brought a new light into his life. Each step they took together was a step toward new hope, a new chance to rewrite their stories. He thought of Mary's daughters, the memories that still lived within him, and the importance of preserving that connection. Mark understood that life was not just about finding answers, but about building bonds and learning to lift each other up in times of difficulty. The transformation he experienced throughout this journey made him realize that true success lies in the relationships we cultivate and the love we share. Now, with a lighter heart, he wondered what the next steps would be. The future was uncertain, but he was willing to face it alongside Daniel, ready to build a new chapter. And you? Have you ever faced a challenge that changed your life? Share your experiences in the comments. Your story could inspire others to find strength in difficult moments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories that remind us of the power of resilience and friendship. Every interaction helps bring more content that touches the heart.